It's a Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, and you know what that means. It's about to get down on this Friday episode. We're going to be talking trust and the importance of trust and how difficult it can be to rebuild trust when it is broken. Damichael Cole and I are going to talk it all out on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, and you know what that means? It is Friday. You have got to get down on Friday. As the wise philosopher Rebecca Black once said to Michael Cole, fun. We're looking forward to the weekend here on Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullenax, partying with my good buddy and co-host, Damichael Cole, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, and we are so glad to have you with us on this Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of all your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Again, we hit over 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you for helping us get across that milestone. Thank you for wherever you take in the show, hopefully being an everydayer and hanging out with Damichael and I each and every time an episode drops. Damichael, we got pretty positive reviews on our barking. Like, I just want to point out we actually, they did not make fun of me in particular. Everybody agreed that you are the better barker. You're the superior barker, which I'm fine with. I'm cool with that as long as I'm not a bad barker, which I'm not. Yeah. So we're both solid barkers.
You brought the bark yesterday.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about it. I have that dog in me, and I just got to remind everybody every once in a while. But today we're going to talk about who we can trust, right? And trust is a very important thing in any relationship, right? One of the reasons you and I work so well together is we trust each other, right? We trust each other to do the show, trust each other to communicate. And, you know, you took good care of me when I was down there in Memphis last month. So lots of trust, right?
Lots of trust over here.
Trust is a thing. Absolutely.
I think the people trust us to make decent shows, right?
I would agree. They trust us to be here just about every day. Now, spoiler alert, we will be taking a day or two off in May. We're not there yet, but there will be a day or two where Damichael and I will let you know. We're going to catch our breath a bit. But, just about every day you get some content over here on YouTube or Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. But, you know, Damichael, when we were planning today's show, you brought up the idea of a circle of trust. You brought up this theme for a Friday, which I loved, of working through who we trust on the Memphis Grizzlies. And I apologize for hijacking your idea, but it inspired me because people that are everydayers know that every once in a while I'll drop a wrestling reference, right? I'm a wrestling guy. I went to WrestleMania in Philly last year. Love me some pro wrestling. And I grew up in the era of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And anybody that's a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin knows that he has a lot of catchphrases. But one of his catchphrases goes along with an acronym, and it's DTA. All right, DTA. And what does DTA stand for, you might be asking, if you're not familiar with Stone Cold?
Shout out to the wrestling friends out there.
Yeah. Stands for don't trust anybody. Because that's me, baby, when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies. I am DTA, don't trust anybody.
Nobody.
Okay? Nobody on the franchise. Now, here's why. Let me explain myself. I don't trust anybody.
I'll expand the horizon for you. No coaches, no front office members.
Literally no one. I trust nobody. Okay? Here is why. Because I don't trust, especially players, in their current roles. Okay. Like, I have serious questions about Ja Morant being the best player on a championship team. Do I think Ja Morant could be the second best player on a championship team? Yes, I would trust that statement. So the Grizzlies have some work to do this offseason if they're going to get to that point. Do I trust Jaren Jackson Jr. to be the third best player on a championship team? Yes, but he's not that right now. He's 1B to Ja's 1A. Therefore, DTA, don't trust anybody. Desmond Bane. Okay, I'm going to keep it going with the Stone Cold references here. I trust Desmond Bane as a catch-and-shoot shooter, as a secondary tertiator creator off the ball. But do I trust him when it comes to one turnover? What? 2 turnovers. What? 3. What? 4. What? You're picking up what I'm saying? Multiple turnovers on the perimeter. No, I do not trust Desmond Bane in that space. I don't trust Tumas Isolo because I didn't see enough. Zach Kleiman has burned me numerous times, quadrupling down on youth. I am at a point where I am searching for reasons to trust the Memphis Grizzlies. And again, with the players, it's more so the role that they're in. I trust them in general to be good basketball players. I'd like to see them in different spaces. But coaching, front office, Robert Guerra might as well be Casper the Ghost. We have lots of reasons to have questions about the current state of play in Memphis. Doesn't mean things can't get better. But I have questions that lead me to not include anybody in my circle of trust except for you, Damichael Cole.
I'm happy to be in your circle of trust. I mean, clearly that is a very tight circle. So it's a position I'm honored to have. Joe, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. And there are 4 names, players, that is. I'm going to focus on the players. I tried to expand it for you because there was no one on the list. But I'm focusing on the players here. And there are 4 names in my circle of trust. And when you hear the names, you'll kind of get an understanding of where I'm going, because maybe initially you won't. But it's, as I think you were kind of alluding to it in a way, it's more conducive to the role that they play. When I say I trust these guys, I trust them in their roles. The first name I'm going to say is Ja Morant. I trust Ja Morant. I trust him to be a playoff performer. Something like sometimes you feel like guys are blowing smoke or they're bluffing or whatever the case may be. But we didn't get to see a lot of it. But when he said he figured out OKC, I do believe that he actually did figure them out in that moment. And you can talk about all these different parts of Ja Morant's games. The IQ, can't really talk bad about that.
Vastly underrated as well. People like to point out the finger guns and all the other silliness. People don't point out enough. And again, Draymond Green, to his credit, has done this. Other NBA players see it. He's one of the smartest players in the league when it comes to basketball on-court movement.
So when I say I trust Ja Morant, I trust him over the course of a playoff series when you're playing these complex defenses who throw all these different looks at you. He's a guy who can look in and say, he'll figure it out. Now, if we're talking about availability, I ain't all the way there yet. But at the same time, Ja Morant, when he's been in the playoffs, he's proven to put together some really strong performances. So right now, he's in my circle of trust. If we're talking someone that I want on my playoff roster, he's in that circle of trust. The next name might surprise you a little bit. I'm going to say Zach Edey. Zach Edey's in my circle of trust, Joe.
That is a little surprising, but I'm listening.
All right, hear me out. Now, one, I'm talking about the role that he's playing. I trust Zach Edey to be a great rebounder over the course of his career. I trust Zach Edey to be a very solid rim protector. And I trust him to be a very good screen setter. I don't trust him to be a 20-point per game scorer, 65% shooter on hook shots and things like that. But I don't need him to be that. This is we're talking about conducive to the roles that I expect him to play on the Memphis Grizzlies. If you put Zach Edey in that simplified role where he's, like he said, he's hunting guys, he's setting screens, he's getting alley-oops, he's getting dunks. I think that he can be a very good playoff performer in that type of role. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep going for my list because I got 4 guys on here. This one, I thought this guy would be on your list, Joe. I mean, I see you don't trust anybody, though. So with that being said, it's fair that he's not on your list. But Scottie Pippen Jr. earned some trust for me. This was a guy that, I had confidence that he could, take that leap this season after what we saw in Summer League and towards the end of last season. But we're talking about conducive to his role, right? If Ja Morant's playing, if Dez and all these guys are playing in a playoff series, you're not going to need Scottie Pippen Jr. to play 25-plus minutes. But you know what? I trust him. I trust him if you need him at 15 minutes in a playoff game to give the opponent hell, picking him up 70 feet from the basket, being aggressive on defense. He has that grittiness. He has that toughness. He's a guy, when someone's cooking on the other end, the opposing point guard, bring Scottie in. He'll be physical. He embodies some of those principles. When I say I trust Scottie Pippen Jr., I'm not saying make him the starting point guard and the Grizzlies are going to go to the NBA Finals. I'm saying in his role as the backup point guard, because this was a question, right, Joe? We were talking about it earlier in the season, the turnover issues and things like that. It's like, Is he the backup point guard of the future? I now, especially what we saw against OKC, I trust him in that role. And I got one more name for you. Shout out to Modern Medicine. I trust Brandon Clark in his role. Now,
even with the PCL injury,
I'm not worried about that. He doesn't even need surgery. This is not look.
Steven Adams didn't need surgery
those.
at first.
You get those Steven Adams nightmares out of your head. This is a different situation. And if you listen to Brandon Clark talk at the exit interviews, I mean, not to put words in his mouth, but he basically described this injury as a piece of cake compared to the Achilles situation. He talked about, I've been through way worse than this, right? So I know he's going to attack rehab really well. And I think Brandon Clark over the course of time will be fine. So with that being said, when we talk about his role, and people tend to forget, the last time we saw Brandon Clark in the playoffs for the Grizzlies, he was one of their more impactful players. He's one of the better players, especially in that series against the Timberwolves. But his versatility on the defensive end really stands out against anyone. And you talk to him at exit interviews, you just could tell he had that hunch where teams were putting Zach Edey in some really tough positions, and he just felt like, man, if I could just go out there, help him out a little bit, or he would have been impactful. So the last three guys that I named, Scotty, Zach Edey, and Brandon Clark, we're not talking about guys who should be, like 35-minute per game starters. I'm talking about guys in their simplified roles. I trust them to do what they need to do. I know when the playoffs come, Brandon Clark isn't going to disappear. We're going to be like, where'd he go? Where's the guy from the regular season? He's going to be the same guy. Scottie Pippen Jr., he's going to be the same guy when the lights shine the brightest. Zach Edey, I think he's coming off as his rookie season. I think he just learned a lot. Those two play-in games, double-doubles. I think he's a guy that I can put in my circle of trust, knowing that he's going to attack this offseason. He's going to go 150%. That's my circle of trust right now. Those four guys, Joe.
DTA, baby. Don't trust anybody. That's where I'm at. And it's not because of anything that the players did. I want to stress that, except for maybe Desmond Bane a little bit. It's the role. But even in the case of Dez, he was asked to do something that he probably shouldn't have been asked to do, at least not as much as he was asked to do it. Let Damichael know, and let Damichael and I, know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C at Mullenax. Who's in your circle of trust? And when we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll talk about anybody who's on the verge. My list will be kind of long on this one, I promise. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? I do that all the time, if I'm being honest. I dine out a little too much online shopping, a little too much entertainment.
Better hope the wife doesn't hear this.
I like to live it up. She doesn't listen to Locked On Grizzlies. Come on, Damichael. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center, tracking all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing money and start building wealth. Speaking of my lovely wife, managing money with my partner, my beautiful bride, is smoother than ever. I track my shared and personal accounts with her, setting goals and staying on the same page without all the stress. And when I started using Monarch Money, I'll be honest, I realized I bought too many smoked chicken wings to Michael Cole. It's weird. I'm really into it. It's almost, it's the Memphis in me. Now I budget smarter, save more. I just go pick up the smoked chicken wings. I don't order them for food delivery. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Shout out to Monarch Money and shout out to Smoked Chicken Wings. So to Michael, I feel like I threw you through a loop a little bit with my Stone Cold Steve Austin reference. I apologize for that. Partner. I don't want to break our circle of trust. So
I think your list will be probably longer than mine. On this one. We might flip flop in this one. Yeah.
Because my list is literally everybody on the Memphis Grizzlies that's a player is on the verge of my circle of trust, except for one name, John Conchar. I firmly trust that every member on the Memphis Grizzlies, if given the opportunity in a proper situation, could succeed, except for John Conchar. Now,
everyone but John Conchar.
I want to make clear, okay? I don't have a personal vendetta against John Conchar. People have said it's kind of weird that I go in on Conchar the way I do. It's nothing against him. It is about the fact that he refuses to shoot the basketball at a clip that someone that his shooting percentage
I did not see this coming.
Should shoot the basketball. And I just really struggle with that. I struggle with people saying that because he has that high basketball IQ, which, feels like a cover, because he has that capacity to rebound, which is a strong skill, especially next to Jaren. It's nice to have. Do you know what his salary is, Damichael Cole?
He's about $7.5, $8 million. Yeah.
He makes way too much money for what
I think he's
does.
like 5th on the Grizzlies now with the expirings going out the window and things like
that can't happen, and he shouldn't be on the team anymore at that number. It just shouldn't occur. So again, it's nothing against John Conchar. People probably, you heard about the big fat guy on Locked On Grizzlies that hates you. I don't hate you, John Conchar. I just wish that you shot the basketball more, and I understand that you do other things well, but you make a lot of money, and I think it's time for that to not be a thing on the Memphis Grizzlies. That's just me. So everybody except John Conchar is on the verge for me, Michael. That's a player.
It's a nice long list for you. So we kind of flip-flop here because there's only 3 guys on the verge when you're talking about the trust factor for me. The first one, I'll go with an easy one, and that's Jaylen Wells. I'm the only difference between Zach Edey, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Brandon Clark and Jaylen Wells for me is the fact that Jaylen Wells didn't get to play in the postseason. That's the biggest difference. But I think that Jaylen Wells has, when you talk about his role, he's right there on the verge for me because there's only one thing that I really want to see from Jaylen Wells this summer, and that's his improvement as a playmaker. I trust his shooting. If you look at his numbers, he was pretty solid pretty much all year long, and then the last 2 months, he shoots 27% in March, 25% in April before his injury from 3-point range. So he kind of just basically fell off a cliff 3-point shooting wise, but he still ended up shooting over 35.5%, despite having 2 months that were well below, 35%. So I trust him as a shooter. I trust him as a defender who's going to continue to get stronger. And he's on the verge because when we get into summer league, like it won't even take regular season basketball for me to put him in the circle of trust. If he gets to summer league and we see him have a couple 5-assist games, I'm there. He needs to be a secondary playmaker. So when teams throw 2 guys at Ja and they trap him and the ball lands in Jaylen Wells' hands and that defender closes out, instead of him trying to shoot over those long closing out 6'7", 6'8" defenders, he can just pump fake, go off the dribble. Okay, you're going to collapse. He's going to pass, kick it out to the shooters, and he's going to get his teams good shots, or he's going to dump it off to Zach Edey, but he has to become that secondary playmaker. That is not something that we saw much of. So that's what I want to see from him. Then I got 2 more guys, and these are 2 obvious names. It won't take a rocket science to figure these 2 out, and that's Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane. They're on the verge for obvious reasons. Like we talk about it every year with Jaren Jackson Jr., but Jaren's so good, man. It's just like I always come back to Jaren is extremely talented. Like when you talk about putting the big in the lab and you say, man, I want to make a guy 6'11". I want him to be able to dribble. I want him to be able to shoot. I want him to be able to have post moves. I want him to be able to block shots, get steals. Jaren can do all of that. He can do all of that. But it's these other things. Jaren is you got to worry about when he's guarding a guy, him stepping on their foot and committing a silly foul, or when he's chasing a guy from behind, him bumping into their back and knocking them down and committing silly fouls. Like it's the things up here for Jaren Jackson Jr. And look, we're getting to year 8 now, so I don't know how much longer. And we talked about him a lot on yesterday's show, but he's right there on the verge because I think some of these things are still correctable. Like I don't think he's ever going to be a great rebounder, but playmaking is something you can always improve at because teams will continue to throw different looks at you, and it's simply just it's reads. It's seeing it before it happens, and that is something that with the right amount of film study, with the preparation, and it's somewhat coaching, any player could be able to do. There's a long history of players struggling with double teams early in their career and triple teams or whatever the case may be, and eventually getting better at it. So why can't he be that type of player? But yeah, he's right there. And then Desmond Bane for me. Desmond Bane is someone we've seen progress almost every season of his career. Like there was linear progression in his career up until roughly the last 2 seasons, and then you've seen some progressions, and then some things have leveled out. But yeah, the secondary playmaking is solid, but it's got to be better. He still struggles to turn the ball over against those more physical defenses. And that's kind of become the embodiment of some of the Grizzlies struggles. So I think some of Ded's biggest struggles kind of go with what the Grizzlies struggle with. Talk about the turnover issues. You talk about, when they play the OKC, the Houston Rockets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, these more physical defenses, they struggle. And you go look at Desmond Bane's numbers over the course of the season. His struggles are kind of in line from a turnover perspective, from a defensive physicality standpoint with the Grizzlies. So, look, they're right there. They are guys I say, man, it's just a little kinks in the armor, and they could be in that circle of trust. But we're talking, to me, this is, when I say circle of trust, Joe, I'm talking about the playoffs. If I'm just talking about regular season, the Grizzlies can win 50-plus games in the regular season. Clearly, they were on that path this season. Just some coaching changes need to be made, some little roster movements. Like, they'll be back on a path to win 50-plus games next season. But will they be on a path to get to the Western Conference Finals? Will they be on a path to get to the second round and play a really tough competitive series, win a first-round series? Will they be on that path? Those 4 guys I named earlier are my circle of trust to let that happen. And these 3 guys are the names who are right there. And as you can probably tell, I got a long list of guys that I can't trust right now.
Can tell that. My list will be shorter than yours. I like that we took very different approaches to
different
this.
routes.
Makes for good podcasting, I would say. Let Damichael and I know how you're feeling about being on the verge of trust with the Memphis Grizzlies. Hit us up on X as well, at Damichael C, at Joe Mullenax. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out this Friday edition of the show talking about who cannot be trusted. I've already told you I'm DTA, but I'm really going to go in on who I really can't trust. You're going to want to hear this. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullenax, one of your hosts, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. So happy to have you with us here and closing out your week with us here on Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael will get out of here on this. Our who can't be trusted, our DTA. Again, I'm already a DTA, but I really want to drive home the point that I'm past the point of talking. I need action, right? I think I've said this recently. A little less conversation, a little more action, to quote the late, great Elvis Presley. And that's at Zach Kleiman, right? Now, Zach Kleiman is a very smart guy, and Zach Kleiman is well aware of the frustration that fans feel, well aware of the frustration that is, even if it's not fair to say that he quadrupled down on youth. He did talk about it, media availability. It's not like they tried to do that, right? Perception is reality. And the perception is that this Grizzlies team got younger while they were talking about winning championships. And that's not how this works, right? Aside from the Portland Trailblazers years ago and maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder, that's not how this works. And even with the Thunder, they have 31-year-old Alex Caruso that is older by 3 years than any member of the 2024-2025 Memphis Grizzlies. So I will no longer trust what Zach Kleiman has to say on the matter until action actually happens. And maybe that's unfair. Dorian Finney-Smith, you reported, lots of people reported. They were at the 5-yard line, right? That was close. A clear action, but it didn't get across the finish line. It didn't get the job done. He went out to the Lakers. He hung out in Los Angeles. All these rumors about all these players. I wouldn't be surprised, Damichael, even if it's I don't know how we got connected to Jimmy Butler. If all of a sudden some betting site has Giannis at plus 500 to go to the Memphis Grizzlies, and we're going to have think pieces, and we're going to do a segment on Locked On Grizzlies and all that sort of stuff. Giannis, Kevin Durant, Cam Johnson, whatever the name might be, a little less conversation, a little more action. I'd love to see John Morant as the second best player because I think that's a championship team. I'd love to see Jaren Jackson Jr. as the third best player because that's a championship team. They need a first best player. How do you go get that guy? That's a heck of a question, but I need to see action. I need to see something that suggests that he is in tandem with the mindset that it's no longer youth-based. The time to win is now. Marcus Smart, credit where it's due. That was a swing. Didn't work. That happens sometimes. I'm not hating on him for Marcus Smart. I need to see something either bigger than that or multiple smaller moves that add veteran pieces around Ja, Dez, or Jaren Either pathway is fine with me. I need to see something substantial before that trust can be regained.
Okay, yeah. You went the management round. I'm gonna talk about some up and coming, some younger players and whatnot that I can't trust right now. But the key is now, and this is just where we are. I got to start with my guy GG Jackson first. Joe, I'm gonna give you a chance to toot your horn. You might not want to toot your horn on this one, but before the season, they were grilling you, Joe. Joe said GG Jackson isn't a winning. Now, Joe, step in and correct me if I'm wrong, but Joe said GG Jackson's stats from his rookie season were not conducive to winning basketball.
They were like said, garbage numbers, and that's what made people mad in the interest of fairness. I was talking about his skill set. I was referencing the fact that he put up numbers on a bad basketball team, and that is what happened. He didn't do it on a team that was winning. He did it on a team that was losing.
And with that being said, we haven't seen him put up the impact numbers on a winning team yet. Do I believe it can happen? Yeah. I still believe that GG Jackson can do it. Yeah, there's progressions that need to be made on the defensive end. A lot of people were wondering why GG Jackson wasn't playing later in the season, and we talked about it. We touched on it. It was pretty much mostly defense related. But you look at his offensive numbers, they kind of went down. And, somewhat expected. We talked about the fact that he was going to be in a different role, right? Then GG doesn't have the ball in his hands like he did his rookie year and things like that. But you know what? You're a hooper. You gotta adjust accordingly, and you still got to find a way to play impactful, meaningful basketball. Now, there is something to be said about, hey, you know what? Maybe the next coach or whoever it is will come in and kind of give GG Jackson a role that's more catered to his skill set, allowing him to be that volume scorer off the bench. And you look at the history of those type of players, Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, those are some of the best scorers off the bench that we've ever seen. Neither one of them was known for their defense by any stretch of the imagination. The Clippers never brought Lou Williams in the game or Jamal Crawford in the game and like, oh, yeah, we're about to lock them up now. No, they came in to get buckets. GG can come in to get buckets. He can do that. But we have not seen it on a winning team yet. So I don't think when we talk about GG Jackson playing winning basketball, it's not as simple as, I don't agree with the route that the Grizzlies took in terms of, we want him to be this 3-and-D. They didn't say that, but his role was that they wanted him to guard these top premier wings, and then on offense he wasn't having the ball in his hands. So what's that? 3-and-D, right? That was kind of the role that he was given. But I don't trust it right now. I do not trust that I can go into next season and say GG's going to be a part of this rotation. It's time. I need to see it a little bit more to believe that to be the case. With Vince Williams, I'm going to take a bit of a different route. Because everybody, shout out to the everydayers. Because the everydayers know Vince Williams Jr. is my guy. They know that Vince Williams Jr. is Joe Mullenax guy. We believed in this guy so much that we were singing the same tunes as Zach Kleiman. We were saying, when Vince Williams gets back in February, that's another impactful wing defender that the Grizzlies could have down the stretch of the season. And then we saw him and he wasn't as healthy. And it was like, okay, maybe March still wasn't as healthy. Then the season ends. And I'm talking to him at exit interviews, and he's like, I'm about 80%. He was never fully healthy. But here's the scary part.
I'm fairly sure that, sorry to cut you off,
yeah.
I'm fairly sure that he told you like 2 months ago that he was 80%.
He said it then. And the hope at that time was to be back playing his best basketball by the time of the playoffs. I'm a little concerned. I am a little concerned here because everyone should go listen to Vince Williams' exit interviews. It wasn't super long. It won't even take you long. But if you go listen to it, I asked a couple questions, about the injury and things like that. And look, there was nothing that he said that just gave me full confidence that he'll be back to the old Vince Williams Jr. Like he said, I got to get my first step back, right? But he didn't say, it won't take me long, just another month or so. I'll be fine. I didn't hear anything like that. I heard I hope I could get my first step back. Now, he didn't say that, but that's what I got. I hope I can get that first step back. Basically saying, I hope I can be that player I used to be. And if Vince Williams can't be that player, that promise that we saw, his second year in the league, then where's the value? because that's his role. He has that grittiness, and fans kind of gravitated towards him and kind of believed that this was going to be when he makes an impact. And it didn't really come to fruition. So I'm at a point where it's like I gotta see the old Vince Williams. And when I see the old Vince Williams, he'll skip on the verge. He'll jump right into my circle of trust, just like that. But right now, I don't know. I'm not confident at this point. And with that being said, I just don't trust it. And then the last player, this is the last player I'm going to focus on. And then everybody else is, I'm just focusing on the rotation guys. Last player for me is Santi Alama. Santi's my guy, man. But
bit of an upset here.
This is an upset. I'm talking about playoff basketball. Gotta play defense. And what did we just see? With as great as an offensive player as Luka Doncic is, his defense just stood out to everyone in that series.
He got picked on by the Timberwolves pretty aggressively.
You tell me right now, the Grizzlies go into a playoff series, teams aren't going to identify Santi Alama and say, here we go. Now, Santi has the want to. And he's talked about it over the last couple of years, getting stronger and doing these type of things. And Santi's gifted. Like, you look at him, you could tell why he was a first-round pick. The way he moves at his size, the way he shoots, he's very skilled. But he's gotta get tougher. He's got to get tougher. And I think if you talk to Santi, he'll probably say the same thing. This is something he's kind of, he's talked about it from a team perspective, but I think some of it is internally in him as well that he knows. He used to talk about, like, man, when we play those more physical teams, we just don't have it. And Santi, a lot of times in those games, did not have it. He had a couple good games, solid games, I would say, against OKC. But I'm not going into a playoff series right now like, yes, I trust Santi. I know Santi could be the difference maker. So I need to see more. Need to see more from Santi.
I think that's fair. Let us know on X, at Damichael C, at Joe Mullenax. Hit us up in the comments. What does your circle of trust look like? Who's on the verge for you? Who do you no longer trust? They can still earn that trust back. That's important to point out. Santi Alama, you can earn that trust back from Damichael Cole.
He's got my regular season trust. That's my guy in the regular season. Yeah.
Zach Kleiman, we're good buddies, right? I want to trust you. I want to trust you. I just need you to make a move here. I need you to not say, we're trying. Close is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? You got to actually finish this thing this offseason. Whatever that vision looks like, it needs to be finished. And I think he feels that urgency. He used that word prematurely, in my opinion, when he fired Taylor Jenkins. I think he's feeling it a little bit more now. Thanks for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. And make sure that now that you have checked out this episode of Locked On Grizzlies as your first listen, go check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. That will not be the Memphis Grizzlies, of course. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Damichael, I feel like we should start next week talking about possible roster changes. Maybe you want to keep the Bane, Ja, Jaren core together. Maybe you're willing to explore moving on from one of those three. Or maybe you're really feeling frisky and you're ready to be a tank commander again. I want to stress I'm not ready for the tank. That's a bad idea. I'm not advertising that. I agree. But there's lots of different angles that you could argue for. Maybe we start that conversation on Monday.
Yeah, it's a relevant question, considering the way that the last few seasons have went and considering what the expectations are now and what they will be going forward. So, look, we said it a lot of times and we're going to continue to say it. This is a pivotal offseason, and I'll continue to say this too. I think next season will be the inevitable offseason, but this one is the one before that one, and it's very important to get a great sense of direction and to get things going in an improved direction.
Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts so you can hang out with us on that Monday edition of the show. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Become an everydayer. If you're not already one, subscribe and be part of our little corner of the internet that we like to call Locked On Grizzlies. For Damichael Cole, I am Joe Mullenax. Stay locked in. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the weather. Hopefully it's nice where you are. And we'll catch you back here on Monday. Until then, stay locked in. Have a good one.